going on, everybody? My name is Jay Faith, and this is the Right Mind Wednesdays podcast where we sit down, make connections through conversation, and just hopefully share a lot of things that can help a lot of people as they move forward in their lives with whatever that they're dealing with. Make sure that you follow us Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, SoundCloud. I got to make sure that I get them all. Instagram. The number keeps piling up. It's crazy, but we're going to keep it moving and keep on sharing this stuff any way possible that we can. Appreciate everybody that's been supporting us thus far, and as we move into the future, into bigger and brighter things. But enough about me. I want to introduce my guest for tonight, one of our ambassadors for the Right Mind podcast from the Turntable Teachers. What's going on, Mike? How's everything?
I'm doing well, man. Just trucking along, living life, trying to enjoy myself and working hard. Got a lot of different things going on right now. And man, yeah, it's exciting to connect back with you again because, I feel like every time we do, it's good stuff. So I always appreciate you welcoming me on your platform. And obviously, you have been on mine numerous times. So it's always good to, cross that with each other. So I'm doing well, though. How are you?
Good, man. It's been a busy couple months between just the nine to
Yeah,
five to the podcast to music and
right.
everything in between. So it's good
Definitely.
to. I definitely enjoy doing the podcast because it gives me a time to just kind of
Yeah.
just sit down and just relax for a couple minutes and just have a conversation, not
Totally. Totally.
have to stress about anything else. So it's cool, and I'm glad to have you back on here. It's been a minute since we've actually had a chance to
Yeah,
kind of settle in and chat and talk and everything else. So
totally. Yeah. Yeah, it's dude, yeah. I'm excited to talk to you about some of the stuff that's going on in just both of our lives and the world and whatever, man. We like I said, we always seem like we have good conversations. So
yeah, yeah.
let's do it.
So what's going on? What's going on your side? I feel like obviously, like I've seen a couple of things that you've addressed on Instagram and things that have
Yeah.
happened within the past couple months, and we're moving forward from that. We're not here to take steps
Yeah.
backwards. What's been progress like and everything for you as far as re-kicking turntables?
Yeah. That's a good question. For me, man, it was I had a really rough and I don't want to make it sound like I like really, maybe a lot of people have hard times in their lives. It's not just obviously me. I don't want to make it seem like I'm complaining or that like I'm, yeah, like I said, complaining about anything. But yeah, no, I had a rough go about this time last year, about a year ago. Um, just some mental health stuff, some stuff in my personal life that had been kind of going wrong. I had death of someone that was close to me. I was just kind of a lot that kind of piled on itself at once.
Takes a lot.
And then on top and then on top of what you're saying too, with like, you know, trying to juggle a full-time job and, obviously like the creative endeavors. For context, given the title of our podcast, I am a teacher by trade, but and a basketball coach as well. So that like takes up a good amount of time. But then obviously I'm still trying to really pursue this podcast. And really I see it as now like almost like more of a trying to take it a little bit more seriously and look at it as more of a business than just kind of a podcast. I feel like sometimes with what we're doing now, it almost like kind of sells it a little short of what the
Yeah.
platform really has, I think, grown itself into. And I think that's really where I struggled because I was really focusing on it being a weekly podcast and I had a routine going with it, which was
Right.
great, right? So like I would drop an episode every Sunday. I would promote the episodes from Monday through Thursday. I would do like a new music Friday and then I'd like pretty much take Saturday off and then just do it all over again. And for a while like the groove worked,
Hmm.
but I felt like at one point it got a little stale and like I kind of got into a little bit of a rut with it. And it felt more like work than it was I was enjoying it, weirdly enough. Like it
Yeah.
really like took to crank out weekly podcasts in the kind of the way we were doing it. Like with you, yours is a little bit more streamlined where you stream, you do the live and
Yeah. Yeah.
then probably chop it up afterwards and it's a little bit easier. Whereas like, we were doing like full-fledged edits and like there was a lot that like was going into it. because I am just one of those types of people. Like I am kind of I don't want to say a perfectionist, but like I like things a certain way, not like OCD necessarily, but maybe
Of
like a
course.
little hint of it. And so for me, it was like, I usually am not somebody that will like wants to put something out if I'm not comfortable, like it being like the best product it could be. So I
Definitely.
prided myself on a lot of that, but at the same time, like it took a lot out of me, I think. And then you pile on some of those like, just things that happen in everyday life. Like I said, like a death around someone near you. And I had, was going through some health, minor health problems. And but it was just kind of things that, and some things in my personal life, but it was just some things that were kind of piling up. Um, and then all of it pretty much led to me to having a stress induced seizure, which was pretty crazy and an experience in itself. I had actually, before that even happened, I decided that I was going to take a little hiatus from the podcast. I had I don't know how much I want to get into this, but I will maybe for transparency,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I had more of an existential experience, I'll call it.
Okay.
And people can read into that or whatever they whatever they
Right.
choose.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I had this existential experience, and through that process, really broke down a lot of things in my mind. I kept asking myself, okay, why am I doing this podcast? Like, why am I feeling like I'm in a bit of a rut with it?
Yeah.
And I sort of came to the realization that the reason of which why I wanted to do it in the first place was to uplift artists and uplift community and stuff like that. And make it a collaborative thing. I
Hmm.
was really neglecting that. It was doing it more. I want to say not do, and again, I know I do it for myself. Like I have to do this for myself, but I think like because it's something I love, right? So like
Yeah.
ideally, yes, but I wanted it to impact other people. And not that I don't think it was, but people were trying to give me some different ideas and how things I could change and adapt. And I was very resistant to that because I was so stuck in like this sort of regimented way that I thought was going to work. And I sort of had this realization that this is going to sound a little bit really kind of out there, but that
Let's
the
go.
podcast is a living, breathing thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me to or the platform, I keep calling it a podcast. The platform is a living, breathing thing that
Yeah.
needs to be adapted and will transform almost like um on its own, right? Like organically, like will transform.
Hmm.
And weirdly enough, I sort of came to that realization that I was almost the one that was like preventing it from continuing to grow
That's
because I
interesting.
wasn't willing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
was really wrestling with that idea of like, maybe this isn't going the way I want it to, but still feeling stuck, like I can't really change, like not really being sure on how to change it. Um, and then after this existential experience that I had, this spiritual experience I had, I really like it felt not dirty to me, but like I had this really like I didn't want to do it at all. Like I really didn't. Like, and then there's this other piece that came into my head about like, is my ego getting in the way and things like that. I just really checked myself a lot on it and realized that like I needed to make a change, but I didn't know how.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
is funny. Like it'll kick you in your ass like when you really need it to, you know what I mean? Like it'll give you
Absolutely.
exactly what you need, even if you don't want it. And I think that, before the seizure, I was even more like in my head, I was like, I don't even know if I want to continue doing this. Like, is it really serving me or am I serving it in the way it needs to be served?
Hmm.
And then I had the seizure. And then I pretty much was forced at that point to stop doing it because not that I hadn't before, but I really just said, you know what, like I need to sort of take a break from this and reevaluate my whole life. Really, I really stripped a lot down
Yeah.
and really kind of started from the ground up. And again, it was a good time of year for it to happen to me, like start of the summer. So I was able to really just take a break, a breather, um, get back to like feeling like me again. There was a period of time last spring where like I wasn't even listening to music for enjoyment anymore.
That's
Like it was
crazy.
straight just like work. That's what I mean, right? Like it was becoming this point where it was like, all right, I'm not even listening to music for enjoyment anymore. That's the supposed to be the reason why I am doing this podcast. Where I would go listen to a song and it would be, okay, how can I write about it? How can I podcast about it? How can I will I put this on our playlist, right? Like making it all business instead of like doing some of the things for pleasure that like brought me joy to begin with.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
yeah,
like a weird thing too. Like that you say that too. It's like some of the things that we brought into the the platforms that we have, it
yeah,
suddenly turns into a job versus, like you said, like
yeah,
that enjoyment. Like when I first like, and I kind of agree with you. I'll be honest and transparent. I'm kind of in that situation right now when it comes to music.
mm,
Not that I don't enjoy making music, but I'm at that point where like I have to almost find that love for it again. Like there's been
yeah,
times where I go to like sit down to write or something and I'm like, what am I doing? Like I just don't feel
yeah,
it anymore. Like I was sitting in my basement the other day,
yeah,
which is where basically it all started. And I'm like, I miss this. Like, I miss just like being in the basement, music cranked up,
yeah,
beats playing, and just writing and just sitting there. I'm like, I used to just sit there with a beer and would just write and beats and record, and like everything just came out. And like now it's like, it's
yeah,
almost like, not that I don't want it to become a job in a sense of obviously like turn into my 9 to 5, but I still want to be able to show up to work and enjoy it. And just like when I get there,
yeah.
I'm like, yo, like I want to be here. Like now
Right, right.
it's like a 75-25 where like it's starting to feel like I'm just like I have to do it. Like I have to show up and I have to put in the
Yeah,
work because if not, I'm gonna, I don't know, let people down. I'm gonna, prove people right, whatever it may be,
right.
whatever cause that I'm still trying to figure out myself. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm in that place too, and like I think that's where I'm at. So I can definitely agree with what you're saying as far as losing that love for it and now trying to find like where was the root of where this all began and why I enjoy the crap out of it in the first place.
Right, and you put that pressure on yourself, right? Like, to
It's
make
huge.
it be yeah, and, like, it can be detrimental, right? Because I think that pressure in a lot of ways can they say, that's the saying, like, pressure creates diamonds, and that is the
Right.
case, right? Like, but I feel like at the same time, pressure can be if it mounts like, the wrong way, it can definitely be, detrimental to, like, ourselves and, like, the way in which we, like, perceive whatever sort of like craft that we're trying to go with. And like, it's funny. I never really saw myself as a creative, weirdly enough. And
Mhm.
then during last summer when I was taking my time off, I sort of came to the realization like I am actually a creative. Like I didn't really realize like think of it in that way.
Yeah.
Or I never saw myself as a creative because as I was sort of like reflecting and like doing the work to like get my mental health back in check and to make sure that I wouldn't have like another episode that like I had. Um and it was scary, man, honestly. Like I'm like thankful for my friends that were like with me. I was in the like we were camping, I was like in the middle of the woods and we're granted at a campsite, but like still it was pretty far away from like
Yeah.
a hospital and things like that. So luckily that I was around people that like not necessarily knew what to do, but just kind of like, got me awake and rushed me to the hospital. And it was like if I had been by myself, like I might not be here right now. And like that was really I think it's weird too, like, once you have, like, a near-death experience like that, like, I just think feel like a lot of people say that where it's like, it does breathe new life into you and it gives you different perspectives, like, the podcast and the platform suddenly felt so unimportant to me in, like, the craziest, like, way, like, it had never not honestly, like, none of my literally jobs felt important anymore, and
Mm.
not that they're not important because like, I don't think that way now necessarily, but, like, when like, when you're struggling with your health, like, that's like, you know, I feel like the biggest thing that you obviously worry about, but like a lot of times it's weird. Like it's not like a conscious thing we like go through like on a daily basis. Um, so anyway, like it was just one of those things where like I was able to kind of bring back like a different perspective with it than I had before. And, kind of realize like, hey, like none of this stuff goes unless I'm okay. And at the same time, like, to not be so hard on myself that like, hey, like as a creative, like you're gonna fail, like you're gonna like things aren't gonna work out like the way you want them to, like all the time. And just kind of like, I guess being okay with that, you know what I mean? Like, for
Yeah,
example,
for sure.
I even just recently, there's a lot going on with our platform right now that I would love to talk about a little bit and a little later. But like, I'll just give this an example though. Like, I really wanted to do. this specific episode. I wanted to do like a mid-year list because I love doing my lists, right? I do my year-end lists a lot, like my
Right.
graduation
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
series and all that, like where you highlight the best song or my favorite songs of the end of the year. And I wanted to do a mid-year, but I'm trying to cram it in with a lot of different other things that we're like involved with right now. And I sat down to finally record that on Sunday, actually, and I recorded it, and it came out like really, in my opinion, like to my standards, like did not come out great. Like a lot of different
Oh, okay.
takes, and like it's like an hour and a half's worth of like rough footage, which probably only has like 40 to 45 minutes of like actually like good footage. And
Yeah,
so
that's
for
serious.
me, I sat with it and I was upset with it, like how it came out. And I really wanted to do it. But then I realized, like, you know what? Like, why break my back and bend over backwards to finish this if I'm doing other things and like I'm not really like into like how this came out. Like why slave over an hour and a half podcast, which is probably going to take me, I don't know how long to edit, clip up, upload, all that time that's going to go into it.
Yeah.
Like if it's not serving like something that I feel like excited about. So I decided to just essentially scrap it. And maybe I'll come back to it. I don't know. Like it's recorded. I saved it on my hard drive. Like, so it's there. Like if I want to ever go back and like edit it in the next like month or something like that, if I feel like I have time or like inspired to go back and do it, but it might not ever see the light of day either. And like for me, I'm like fine with that at this point. Like I wasn't for like a few hours and even like a night. And then I woke up the next morning and I was just like, this is stupid. Why am I like worrying about this? I have these other projects right now that are going to be amazing. And and I'm focused on the one that didn't come out great. Like when the other
Yeah.
stuff's really working. So why am I giving my energy and my time to that? And I feel like a year ago I wouldn't have done that. I would have probably slaved over that episode to get it done because I wanted it to be out because I wanted to, the content is king sort of narrative. It's like, put out as much as you can because you're competing with everybody that's putting out as much as they can. And it's just like sometimes you just don't have it. There's a day you just like, you know
Yeah.
what? I don't have
Seriously.
it today. And you know what? Honestly, at this point, it's like I'm not going to stress about it. And you know what? I'm going to sit and say, you know what? If I don't enjoy what I'm doing or I don't enjoy like an episode or it's not fulfilling, then there's really no point in putting it out. And really what we're doing right now with all the episodes and like the guest speaker episodes, like the way we're doing them, recording at Nowhere Studios, and like those episodes are amazing and going amazing. And I feel like how I restructured the show is like, I don't want to say perfect, but like just for me, like I just feel like I'm in a really good groove right now with that. And I always walk away from those like super inspired and like motivated.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to focus my energies on that. And I don't think I would have came to that realization had I not gone through what I went through a year ago. So it kind of just goes to show that like, you know, the time away was like beneficial as hell just for myself and also like the platform. So
Mhm. Yeah, I feel sometimes we feel like we have to prove ourselves greater than what we already have. Like you said,
right,
we have like what we were talking about off air. I have all this music that I'm ready to put out, and I keep swaying back and forth of, maybe I'll just drop it, maybe I'll wait, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. And I'm like, dude, like same situation. Why am I trying to compete with everybody who's dropping and not doing who Jay Faith is, and just
right,
getting everything prepared with the way that I want to do it, and leave it at that, and stop worrying about everybody. And I always think about, some of the bigger artists, like you won't see them for a year, and then all of a sudden
right.
it's
We
like,
just didn't see
bam.
Kendrick for 5 years.
Yeah, literally
Like
ghosted
like straight
everybody.
up, like literally like was not even on social, like literally was not present at any award shows, social media, nothing. Like we literally
Mhm.
in interviews, we literally did not see Kendrick Lamar for 5 years.
Yeah, and then he just popped up and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna drop an album," and everybody was like, "Oh!" Like,
Yep.
so you
Yep.
know what I'm saying? So if you have that fan base that just still and ready for you, they'll be waiting for you. So that's just where my mentality has been, just trying to go and, again, do
Yeah.
it the way that I want to do it. Stop worrying about what everybody else is doing, and just do what you got to do. But I think we
Right.
sometimes just try to overproduce to keep up instead of looking
Yep.
at some of the gems that we already have and just being like,
Yeah.
how can I take these beautiful gems that I have that are super dope and I believe and I'm happy with, and put them out to the world in a creative way that will, people will
Exactly.
be able to connect with it. But we're like, no, we got to create, create,
Yeah.
create, create, and then we get swamped. Again, I preach into the choir here. We get swamped, and we get overwhelmed, and then we're like, what are we doing? And then we just hit that point. We're like, dude, it's not even worth the stress
It's not
anymore.
no, it's not. No. And yeah, I completely hear what you're saying. Like I agree with it a lot. I think that, you're right. We tend to like as creatives, we overwork ourselves and like you need that time to sort of like take away from it, like be away from it, Like it really, I think it's always I used to do this a lot with when I was in as an English major, like when I used to do a lot of like analytical writing and stuff and writing a lot of essays and all that shit. I'm glad that's part of my life's over. Whereas like I would write a lot and I'd feel like, oh, this is like good or whatever. And I got into the habit of like writing like a draft and then like taking a few days away from it and then coming back to it
Yeah.
because I found that like even if I would sit there and like after I wrote something and go through it, I wouldn't pick up on as many of like the just very blatant mistakes I was making versus if I came back to it with a fresh set of eyes like 3 days later.
Mhm.
You know what I
It's
mean?
important.
And it just so I don't yeah, so I don't know what that like psychology necessarily of it is, but like it is the case where, you know, taking time with things and like not feeling like they need to be like we need to rush all of our things we're doing. And honestly, too, like I find sometimes like the things that I put in almost less, not less effort, but like less thought into actually come out better in a way. Like not everything, but when I
Because
came
you're not
back, like the
so
first like
Because you're
go ahead.
not to interrupt, but because you're not
No, no,
so
no.
like worried about it and stressed about it, like what do people think? Like you
Yeah.
just like I'm just gonna do it and just see what
Yeah.
happens instead of like I feel you know we again as creators we feel like we everything has to be cut just a certain way and needs to be a certain way. I remember watching the J. Cole documentary before he dropped his latest project, and he was like, "Yo, like I just wake up, the verse, and I make sure that I write a verse." But he's like, I just start writing. I don't try to make it so that
Mhm.
it's a certain way or whatever. He's like, I just start writing and just see where it takes me and then just
Exactly.
go from there instead of trying to be like, all right, line one has to be flawless. And then
Yeah,
line
yeah.
two's gotta be even more flawless. Like he's like,
Right,
no,
it has
like
to be, yeah.
I just write. And then again, and I've tried to adopt that as well too, because sometimes I get
Oh,
into
yeah.
my head about that when I'm writing and I'm like, oh, I gotta make sure that everything is perfect. And I'm like, dude, just write because you could like start the first couple bars, but that influences what happens later, and then what happens later could be like the dopest thing that you ever write, but if you never started
Exactly.
writing that, like you're never going to reach that point of mental thought to get to that point.
Yeah, and then not being so attached to like the end result of things too, or like
Right.
putting like certain expectations on like what something's gonna be, like just doing it for the
That's
sake
what
of
it is.
like either the enjoyment or whatever. Because like once I stopped kind of putting certain expectations on things or feeling like, okay, we're not at this certain level, like I want to be at this certain level, or this episode didn't like hit as many views as I would have liked it to, or whatever, like kind of throwing those things out the window and just being like, you know what, like I'm gonna create because I like to create. I like like I believe in the platform. I believe what we're doing. And then focusing too, I think, on like the actual people that are engaged instead of just like trying to like always consistently try to get new fans, new audience, all that stuff, because that can be super tiring as well. And excuse
Yes.
me, and draining. And it's crazy because, the first, when I initially like came back, I did like a podcast and I just talked about like my mental. I pretty much talked about it's anyone wants to go check it out. It's just called like my mental health
Yeah,
story on our
check it out.
it's on our YouTube. It's on our all of our like podcast episode platforms and stuff. And yeah, it's like a half an hour, 35 minutes, something like that. And I didn't really talk too much of I talked a little bit about myself, but then more so like Um, just kind of about some of the things that I like learned about just myself and like life over the last like that past 6 months. And I really honestly just like turned my computer on and my mic and just like started talking. And it really flowed. I felt like well, but I was a little skeptical and like to put it out just because I was a little bit it was a vulnerable thing, like a vulnerable topic, and I wasn't
Sure.
sure how people were going to react to it. And but I just said to him, I initially so I sat on it for a while, and then I just said, you know what, like I think this is important. It's important to me, so like I should just put it out and like maybe it'll help somebody. And I can't even stress it to you enough how many people like actually like reached out via DM or email or text. And it was like people from all kind of like walks of my life where it was like I had old friends from like high school that were reaching out saying like, hey, like I came across your episode, like it really helped me. Or like like I had certain family members reach out and be like, I didn't realize you went through that, like thank you for sharing that, like I went through this. Artists that hit me up and being different you know um influencers and podcasters platforms, like a lot of people reached out and just pretty much said like how amazing it was that I did that. Um and that I helped them, or I helped them with their mental health, or just gave them a new perspective they didn't have prior. And that like was, I think, very powerful and telling of um what it was, and what it kind of grew to be. And I even had an artist friend tell me that it was my best podcast ever. And I never would have even thought that as I was putting it out, that this could have been like my best work ever in the 4 years I've
Yeah.
done this. So, like, for to me to get that sort of reaction, I think definitely, jump-started me for sure, but I think also, um, said a lot about the fact that these conversations are actually, like, wanted. Like, people wanna hear people talk about this
Mhm.
stuff, even if we
Yeah.
think it's taboo. Like, people actually do wanna hear about this stuff more times than not. And I find that to be interesting that, some of the taboo topics that we think we shouldn't talk about end up being the ones that people like gravitate towards and find importance in. So I took a lot of responsibility and pride in that. And yeah, so it was definitely a great experience overall. Like in a weird way, I'm kind of glad everything that happened to me did, because I don't think like I said, I don't think I would be the person I am right now in this very moment without that. And I'm still a work in progress, like I don't want us to reiterate that too, where it's like I'm not still not perfect, right? Like
Yeah.
it didn't like
Yeah. Same.
change my life, and everything has worked out for me since. I still
Right.
struggle too, like everybody else, but
Yeah.
just knowing that like struggles are going to happen, like that is part of it, and just like to not be so again wrapped up with the end goal or the end result, like just to enjoy the journey and realize that everyone has their own journey, and your success is not my success. And like, if just because someone else is getting their moment, like doesn't mean that I won't, or vice versa.
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel good right now as where I'm at, and specifically with the platform with Turntable Teachers. Like I am really ecstatic of where we're at. So it's all good. So
Nice. Nice. Yeah. We as people, we're a weird people, but we have
yeah,
this
people are weird.
weird notion that we're like the only people that go through certain things, and then
Yeah, we're
it's
prisoners of our
always,
own minds.
yeah. And then when people like you open up and have those conversations, people are like, like someone else is going through something, and
Right.
it's, oh, I
Exactly.
I know exactly what it is. And so it's
Right.
like you said, like these are the conversations that we need to have.
Yeah.
But it's also getting people to open up and share it and be like, no, like, because they're just like, oh, it's just me. I'm the only one. I can't share it because I'm gonna be the odd man out. I'm gonna be the weird person. I'm gonna be the weirdo. And it's like, no, like there are so many people out there that are dealing with similar situations. I don't want to say that every single situation is the same,
No.
but it at some point there are some lines that are gonna some dots that are gonna connect, and you're gonna be like, okay, like I understand, and I'm not the only person that's dealing with this, and I
Right.
can make it through. these are some of the processes that I probably have to go through, and realizing, what I'm sacrificing and putting to the side, or what I'm focusing too much on instead of focusing on this, or whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
there's a process that has to go through with that, and it's so taboo now, and people are like, oh, we need to help everybody's mental health, but don't talk about it because it's a sensitive topic. Well, then how are we supposed to
How are we
how are
supposed
we
to do
supposed
it?
to help
Exactly.
people? Like, what
Right.
it
Right.
how is this supposed to happen? And and then they just throw, they sometimes they just try to slam pills down your throat and say, this will
Yeah.
help
No,
you.
it's nah, dude. The pill, like that's the thing about it that drives me nuts. Um,
And not to
yeah. Go
not
ahead.
to knock medication. I know that it does help, and I don't want to say don't go that route. But I don't. The thing that I don't like is when that's always the first option.
Yeah.
That
I'm
that
with
that's
you.
what
Like
bugs me.
I yeah, yeah. I yeah, screw it. I'll talk I'm gonna talk freely, and if it blows up in my face later, then so be it.
I'll stand
I
on
was
the
just
ledge
having
with
this
you.
conversation. Thank you. Um I don't disagree that some pharmaceuticals can be helpful.
Hmm.
Um, in my experience, they were not for me. They actually did the opposite. They were more detrimental than they were helpful.
Okay.
Um, there are more natural remedies that we can do to help our mental health, and it's like, and all this stuff too. It like takes work, and it's hard work. It's not
Hmm.
easy, right? It's like and this is going to sound insane, but like there's an episode of Rick and Morty that really speaks to
Let's go.
me. Any like
Let's go.
nerdy Rick and Morty fans out here, right?
What's
It's
up?
the Pickle Rick episode. And it's
Yeah.
probably the
Okay.
one part, I think it's the one part of the episode that people always lose when he finally goes to therapy at the
Hmm.
very end as a pickle,
Yeah.
because he's realized through the whole process that he avoided therapy for the entire episode, almost died by rats and
Hmm.
falling down the sewer, and like the secret service people that were trying to fucking kill him and all that shit. Like
Yep.
he goes to therapy and he starts to take jabs at the therapist.
Hmm.
And she pretty much says like along the lines of like, oh sure, like you are the smartest man in the universe, like clearly you would be bored to tears by therapy just like I am when I brush my teeth and wipe my ass, because like those are things that are necessary to do, and nobody wants to do those things because they're mundane tasks, but like it's work, it's maintenance, we have to consistently maintain ourselves. But she's talking to him in a very condescending way of like, oh, I'm sure you'd be bored to death by therapy, and that just because you're so smart, you wouldn't need to like have to go through all this. And he like knows she's being condescending and like doesn't say have it, has nothing to say to her.
Right.
And like it's
Yep.
the greatest fucking shit in the whole
Yeah.
world. And it
So
like
that's funny.
and it is, and it spoke to me big time, because we do that a lot where we're not willing to do the tough work. We're willing to just like put the band-aid on, which is like I think the pharmaceutical company. And I don't want to get into this whole fucking thing, so we'll probably get
Yeah.
shadow banned.
Yeah.
But like, you know what? Like the pharmaceutical companies, man, they're not in on our best interest. They're just not. Like there's other things out there that like are proven. Like there's documentaries out there right now, like Netflix. I'm just gonna say it because it's mainstream now. Like Netflix just did a documentary on psychedelics and how psychedelics can actually help depression, addiction, and like how America literally like shadow ban, like pretty much shadow banned and canceled those types of drugs and tried to pretty much like make them evil, like through the media. And weirdly enough, like it's these pharmaceutical drugs that everybody's getting addicted to in the pills. It's not LSD and psilocybin and even cannabis, which is like completely like taken its own turn now. You know what I mean? It's breathed new life, and like it's legalized in so many different states for medical purposes and even recreational and all that stuff, right? So like the science is there, but even if you don't want to go down either of those roads, and I'm not condoning people like go do like a psychedelic trip, but I'm just like, it's not for everybody. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, there's other things you can do. Like, I got into one of the big things that I did, yoga. Yoga was incredible, is incredible. I still do it, and it's incredible. It's good for my body because I don't stretch well after I ball, because like
Same.
I am lazy and it forces me to stretch. But it's good for my mind too. It like makes me like get away from the electronics and pretty much everything else for the rest of my day. Like I'm in that yoga class, and like some people are like, oh, like why do you go to yoga class? You don't just do it on your own. Like, you know what? I like being guided and being able to shut my brain off and have someone tell me what to do for once, instead of me telling everyone else what to do, right? As a teacher and
Right.
as a coach and all that. Like that is actually soothing for me to have somebody be like, tell me, well, okay, go in this position and breathe. Like that's amazing. Honestly, reading, incredible. Like
Reading's dope.
if you are having trouble sleeping and going on fine, I'm bad with this too. Like I'm not even saying I'm like good with this. Like admittedly, like I'd be transparent. Like I struggle with this too. Like if you're having trouble sleeping or your mental health's bad or whatever the case, like read for 30 minutes before you go to bed instead of like being on your phone or watching a show before bed. Like that is even like so helpful. Like when the nights I do that, I sleep better and I feel better when I wake up. Meditate, journal, go to therapy. Stop making therapy be taboo. Fucking go to therapy.
Yeah.
Like do it. Like I don't even endorse. I'm not endorsing a therapist. Just fucking go. It's great.
Yeah.
Like you get to talk to somebody about your feelings and thoughts and like for an hour and they're unbiased to your situation. So there's like so many other avenues that we can try.
Yeah.
And then, just like being prescribed a pill. And that for some reason you go to the doctor and that's like the first thing they do. They give you a friggin' pill. And I'm not bashing doctors. Like they do great work. I mean, they got us through a 2-year pandemic that's still technically still going on. But like it's, I'm not bashing anybody in the actual medical industry because I know how difficult that is and I could never do it. And sorry for my long ass rant, but like
You're good.
this is just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so transparent to me
Yeah.
too. That's the crazy part. It's so transparent. And yet as a society, we can't sort of figure out how to move forward with these things instead of like you said, pushing pills down people's throats. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be so harsh when I say that, but like, it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
it's
But it's
just,
true
it's
though.
just how I feel.
There's so many simple things that we can do. Like when you said the reading instead of watching TV, like it's almost well, not almost. It's like scientifically proven because like the blue light from your TV screen is what keeps you awake. So when or your phone or whatever, or your
Right.
tablet, whatever. So like those are the things that keep you awake. And then we're like, oh, I can't sleep. I was just trying to watch TV when I fall asleep. They're like, no, turn the TV off and at least like a half hour before you go to bed. Like it's
Yeah.
recommended everywhere, but then people are like, oh, I can't sleep, I can't sleep. Well, there's maybe a piece of your problem. I'm not saying that's always the answer, but
Right.
there's a piece to your problem. But people don't want to put the work in. They want the simple fix. They want the band-aid over the
Yeah.
leak that is going to take care of it. It's like, no, it's going to
Mhm.
break again at some point. Instead of just
Exactly.
it may take a little bit longer, but you're gonna get the result that you're looking for instead of just being like, "Oh, okay, I'm cool. All right, I'm cool now." Like, but you're
Exactly.
gonna go back in 2 days instead of
Exactly. Right. We're gonna just
yeah,
it's that vicious cycle and breaking those like habits that we've built in our day and age now. And it's I mean, even simple things, man. Like again, I'm a big hiker. Like that's my big thing. I help that I do as well for my mental health. Like I like going on hikes and like longer ones too, like overnights or like big ones. But you can really just go for like a nature walk or like a walk in your like neighborhood, and like that even is
seriously.
like clinically proven to help you. Do you know the author John Green by chance? Do you know who he is?
I don't. I'm not familiar.
Okay. He wrote The Fault in Our Stars. They made it into a movie and
Oh,
yada yada
okay.
yada. So
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah, yeah.
there's
Okay.
this TikTok. Yeah, yeah. There's this TikTok he has. He's really he's actually pretty fucking funny. He has this TikTok where he's walking and he's like, I'm on one of these stupid walks again for my stupid mental health. And why am I walking? Because it works. It really does work. Like, you know what I mean? And like, I think he's playing on that sort of concept of like, you're going to tell me I'm going to go for a walk, really? And that's supposed to help me. But like, it does. I know people that do it too, and it helps them. So it's like, I guess like what I'm trying to say is like there's a lot of different ways, and like you don't even have to do everything I just said or that we just said. Like you can do like try one or two and just like or
Just
one
try
like the
it.
ones that you want to try. Yeah. What's the harm in trying something that's like
So
good for your health? Like I don't know. I just don't see the reason why we wouldn't instead. And ironically, like, when I was on my medication, like I was bad at taking it. Like I'm just bad at remembering to like do that. Like every like I so like it defeated the whole purpose for me. Like I didn't even I don't know. I don't know. I just yeah, yeah. It and then just being active too, working out, whatever it is that you like to do, man. Like just It's important, and I know it's, like, talked about a lot, but I feel like there are, it's always talked in very generality, and, like, we need just more, like, actual practical things we can all try on a daily basis that will help, because there is stuff that helps. Like, it really is. And, like, yo, am I perfect at it? Like, hell no. Like, there's days where I will, and nights I will watch that extra episode and I'm up till 12:30, and then I wake up the next morning and I'm like, fuck, why did I do that?
Facts,
I fall into
facts.
the same traps. I'm preaching the preaching, and yet, like, I fall in the same trap. So it just shows to
Mhm.
show like how hard it is to even be cognizant of it and then still have to do it, or still do it anyway. So
Yeah, but
yeah.
you have to try. You have to find it's a habit breaking thing where
Yes.
like there's either triggers or just a habit that you have molded just that people just get into, which obviously causes these mental health things because
Right.
it does, there are situations that you've gone through or whatever, and you have to replace those moments so that you don't go back to that habit. So if,
Right.
for example, well, I'll use this for as an example, not saying that it's the root cause of anything, but if you watching TV before you go to bed is what causes your mental health issues, well, now you have to remove that TV, but if it still takes you a half an hour, so what is it that you're going to fill something that's healthy in that half an hour that will help you fall asleep, aka, for example, reading. Now, okay, now you've replaced that. It's something different than what you used to do. So it's almost like the insanity thing. It's trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different
Expecting a
result.
different result.
It's not going to
Mhm.
happen. So you have to try something different to get a different result. So again, example, start reading and see if
Yep.
that is what can help. If that's something that's for you, obviously do something that's for you. Don't just do
Right.
something that's completely out of your element. Not that that's always a bad thing, but staying on
Right.
topic here, uh try something different that works within you and who you are as a person. Don't completely change, and
Right.
see if that works, see if that helps you. If it doesn't, try something else. Like you said, try one or two different things that could potentially help you, but don't you
Right.
gotta you just have to try, and you have to try something different.
Yeah. And man, like, I was very intimidated the first time I did yoga. Like, I'm in a class with, like, and there are men that do yoga. So, like, men out there that are like, oh, it's a girl
Mhm.
thing. I don't do yo. Like, honestly, like, strip that away from your like mentality right now, because
You know
it's
how many
just
NBA players
unproductive.
do it?
They all do it, actually.
Yeah,
They all do
that's what
it
I'm saying.
because it's important. It actually like is like it's proven to help with like so many different things, but
Exactly.
whether it be physical and mental. Um, but yeah, actually, the person like one of the actually Phil Jackson's like really big into all this stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, he's like the winningest coach, in NBA history. Like, no, besides like Red Auerbach, but like
Hmm.
Red Auerbach like drank and smoked himself to death. Like, Phil is actually like very zen, and he's like that's just the type of
Yeah.
person he is, and like he's big into like that type of like all the stuff I'm talking about, right? Like the natural remedies and like the things that like grow from the ground that are clinically and are natural, that are clinically proven to help us, and yet and these sort of these spiritual, like, I hate to call them activities, but like
Hmm.
um yeah, whatever, spiritual activities that like you can do that will help not only your physical but your mental. So no, the yoga, like, it was intimidating the first time I went. Like, I was like, how am I gonna be? I'm super unflex, like, I'm not flexible. Like, how am I gonna do this?
Hmm.
And like after a while, it just got better and easier, and like I saw results not only mentally but also physically. Like, it was cool to be like, oh my god, I can almost touch my toes. I've never been able to before in my life. I'm 20, I'm good 28, going on 29 years old, and I can finally touch my toes. That's great. Whoa, we did it. It only took us
Progress.
28 years.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like you said, absolutely, just taking that initial like chance to do it. And like these, a lot of these things are super low risk, way less risk than taking a pill,
Yeah, look at
or
the
being
labels that
addicted
say
to
all
like
the
a
thing.
phone or whatever. Right. So
You know
anyway, I could talk
the
about
la-
this forever, but
yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, it's
what are
you
you gonna
gotta.
say about the labels?
No, I was just saying, like, anytime you look at, you see the commercials with any type of prescription, whatever. There's like a 10-minute
No.
long you have possibility of getting this, and this, but we're gonna try to cure one thing, but we're gonna possibly give you 10 more options of 10 different things. Like, What's
I'm like, I'd rather just be depressed because all these other things will make me depressed as well.
right? I'm gonna be
You
depressed, and
know?
I'm probably gonna have a heart attack. Like what? Like what are you kidding
Yeah.
me?
It's
Like
insane.
what's
It's
the point?
absolutely
But
crazy.
yeah, we
It's
could have a whole
crazy.
entire podcast just on labels and
Hey, it's right
prescription.
mind, man. This is like kind of the
That's
platform
true.
for it. So I
That's
love
true.
it. I love it,
Yeah,
man.
I just yeah, we got to have these conversations have to be had. It can't be taboo anymore because
Nah.
especially nowadays post COVID, I mean everybody between being cooped up in their house to, going
Yeah.
back into social situations to just being and every to each their own, still being nervous with how COVID is, staying masked up or not
Totally.
going out as much as possible, as much as they can, and whatever, like there's still that effect of it. So like people are still dealing with a lot of different things, and then obviously now we look at
Absolutely.
the economics is going right now for everything between gas, which we don't need to get into either, but there's so many different things. It's not only adults, it's the kids, and they're going through
Oh
all
yeah.
these different things, but they're just like, oh, like here's a tablet, just go to social media, just go, here's this, watch this, just
Right.
go on Netflix, just do this. It's like, no, like people really need help, and then they wonder why people are doing crazy things and thinking the worst and just doing these horrible things, but they're not okay, but they don't have people or
Yeah.
resources around them that are willing to talk about these kind of things or even just
Exactly.
step in to help. I talk with the teens from my job, and I'm not going to pinpoint any specific teen, but they
Right.
tell me they have these issues that are going on, and then they go to their guidance counselors and they just ignore them. And then I'm like, it makes me and another coworker who are very passionate at what we do like want to like go to the school, kick down the door and go, what are you guys doing? These kids have issues and problems, and you guys are just standing or just sitting on your hands doing nothing. And then you
Right.
wonder why they're not passing, or they're not showing up to school. It's like, what's the point?
Mhm.
Why should I show up to school if these people don't even care about how I feel
Yeah.
to be here?
Yeah, and then, dude, yeah, and then working in a school, it's like I take that stuff seriously. Like I've had many conversations with students about their mental health and how they can, help themselves a little bit. And yeah, I always welcome those conversations. To be honest, like I've never really shied away from like a conversation like that. And I think it's something that am I like the greatest teacher? No, I'm still kind of young in this. Like I only 7 years in. Like I still have a lot like I need to improve on as an actual educator of like delivering curriculum.
Hmm.
Um, but my biggest strength as an educator has always been that side of things. Um, so which sometimes is like, am I even doing the right job? Should I be like guidance counselor? Should I be a therapist?
Right.
Like things like that. Like I think about sometimes, but
Hmm.
it's okay. That's another like existential spiritual thing. I guess I'll have to go through it another time to figure that one out. But
Yeah, right.
either way, like I do what I can, and like when I see it, and again, I don't like call kids out, be like, you look like you're having a really bad mental health problem. Like, let's
Right.
talk about it, right? But if like it comes up, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
being an English teacher, like it does come up because like we have the conversations and like the characters in our books have mental health problems, so like it just kind of
Mhm.
sometimes does creep in a conversation. So yeah, man. If it was taboo, less taboo, and like we talked about it more, then I think we'd like be better off like with you combating it, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it's funny how some people, around the country and the world, they say, oh no, we don't have this problem or a that problem. We have a mental health problem. Okay. So, how are we going to fix it then?
What are we gonna do?
If you don't
Yeah.
want to fix all these other problems that are problems and you want to blame everything on mental health, okay, fine. But
So what do
how?
we do?
Because no
Yeah.
one
What do
has
we do?
given me, yeah, there's solutions out there, and that a lot of certain, again, I don't want to get too bit into this because I think the big wigs will take us down. But no, like there's not to be all conspiracy theorist because I'm not, but
Right.
there's things we could be doing that we're not. So it's
And
just I don't know. I struggle with it.
mhm.
It makes me sad.
And that's what I tell the kids is, anytime that they come in, I'm like, listen, I don't know your life. I'm not in your shoes.
Exactly.
I have been around for a little bit, so I have gone through some things on my own. And if there's ever a time where you just need to talk, I may not always be able to solve your problems. I may not always be able to answer any questions that you may have, but please know that the door is open for you to at least share, and we can try to make some type of progress
Yeah.
moving forward and not have you just bottle this up and
Mhm.
let it just spill over inside you, because that's not going to do any good for you. It's going to be worse than if you can at least just get it out and get it on the table and just have a conversation versus keeping it inside. I'd rather you let it out and just have this conversation than for you to just keep it, because it's not going to be good for you, and we have to have those
Yeah.
open doors.
Well, what you just said, I think, is like a huge piece of it, right? Where it's like getting on these kids' level and being like, hey, like I've been through these sorts of things too, or like this is like a little bit of like what I went through, um or something that I dealt with. Um because I feel like from a kid's perspective, I don't know how you felt when you were a kid, but like I always sort of thought that like adults had all the answers and that like they had things figured out. And then being an
Mhm.
adult myself, realizing that like, oh, I don't. Like, I don't know. And I
Yeah.
think it's important for kids to know that like I don't know if it like comes off pessimistic, but like for them to know that like you're gonna get to my age at some point and you're still not gonna have all the answers. And like,
Hmm.
but I guess on some level, like being okay, like not even some level, like most levels, hopefully, kind of like just being okay with that and like accepting it and realizing that that's fine. If we knew everything, then what would be the point of living? You know,
Right.
and like experiencing. If you
There's no
knew every
progress.
experience or had of it, it would be, yeah, exactly. Like what would be the sense of that? So, and I think for kids, it's more harder to like come to that realization and grasp that sort of concept than it is in adults. But adults are just as bad too. I mean, then there's, I always say to myself, I don't want to ever be an adult, and as I'm old and get even older, like I never want to be. I hope my hope would be that if I hopefully make it this long, that if I'm 70, 80, 90 years old or whatever, that I'm still a person that is willing to like learn new
Hmm.
things and
Yes.
gain new perspectives. Cause I feel like some people reach a certain part, like time or like age in their lives, and they're just like, I think I know everything I need to know.
Hmm.
Not even that they say they know everything. It's that like, I think I know everything that I need to know. And it's, you might
Hmm.
not. You probably
Right.
don't, truthfully.
Yeah.
So I hope that for myself that like I never get to that point. And I'm
Yeah. I said
sort of
that.
like I remind myself of that a lot.
Yeah, I said that. I said that the other day. I was like, because it related to kind of the music thing of
Yeah.
I don't want to reach the end, because when I reach the end, like that means that it stops. And then the fun
Yeah, that's a good
part
point.
is the fun part is the entire journey. It's all
Right.
the interactions that you have to build up to the next thing. It's the
Yes.
shows that you go to, it's the studio sessions that you have, it's conversations that you have. Those are the things, as you're going through the whole process building up to the next thing, is that's what makes it fun. And you
Exactly.
know the learning that goes along with it. So I never want to reach that finish line. I want to
Mhm.
keep going, because there's so much more to learn. And to say that I would be scared to reach a point where, like, I think I like you said, I think I know everything, or I think I know everything I need to know, because knowledge is limitless in
Right.
itself. Not to get
Right.
along that line, but because obviously you could think of a million and one things, but I'm just saying, like, even within your own life, there's so many different things that you could learn based off of things that you are still passionate about. Like, why
Right.
stop that process just because you think you've reached a point? And again, I'd rather continue on the journey than to hit the finish line and then be like, so what is there to do now? What is there for me to experience now?
Mhm. Absolutely. No, I think that would be a hell on earth, to be honest. I
Be
don't think that
scary.
would even be I don't even think that would be enjoyable.
Mm-mm.
So, I completely agree.
No, not at all. Yeah, I just I wouldn't know what to do with myself. Like, I think about it sometimes, even with music. Like, when that day finally comes, obviously there will be a time where I will stop doing music, and it's like, what it kind of scares me. It's like, what am I
Yeah.
gonna be looking? What am I gonna kind of do next. But let me just be in this moment. Let me just appreciate where I'm at
Mhm.
now and the experiences that I'm going through, and we'll just cross that bridge when we get there. And I'm sure
Yep.
that at that time I'll be investing in, something different and just going through the processes, and something else will pop up where I'll be like, okay, now this is where I want to transition into, and this is what I want to do. Let's keep it going. And let's branch
Mhm.
off into something different.
Yep. And we only have this moment, truthfully, because the moments that have already happened are in the past, and the moments that haven't happened yet aren't necessarily guaranteed. So like all we ever have is the moment that we're currently in. So not to be like cliche, but it's really the truth. So no, I
No, it
agree
is.
with a lot of like everything you're saying.
No, it is the truth. Tomorrow's not promised, and I think a lot of people take
Mm.
that for granted too. And even just in
Yeah.
minute things, we say, "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow." Like, dude, like
Right.
even not saying that you were to pass or anything, and I'm just speaking in general, not you specifically. I hope not.
No, yeah.
Lord willing. Um, you push it off, you push it off, you push it off, but then other things pop up, and then
Mm.
it gets away from you, and then it never gets done. As
Right.
probably a million and one people have heard before, but it's so true, and it just needs to be said and said and said and said again, just along with the mental health thing. I mean, it goes with mental health anyways. Stop pushing off things that you want to do and want to enjoy. Like, just go out and do it. Like, stop waiting, stop pushing it off, because if you keep pushing it off, you're never going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. Because there's never a better day to start than today. That's what I
Hmm.
like to
Yeah,
say. Start doing something. So heck yeah.
seriously,
I love it.
seriously. Yeah, man, it's important, and I'm glad. Like I said before, I'm glad that people like you are going on these platforms and have a platform where you can open up and share these things, because
Yeah.
we as a people, we need it now, and it's just important.
Yeah, I always try to tie in something like not I mean, this conversation we just had was like definitely a little lot more like deep and intricate than like most of the conversations I have about it. But like, I think a lot of artists funnel like these types of concepts into their music. And I always try to bring in like something like this, or, there's definitely certain things that I've had these conversations with on my platform as well. So a lot more sometimes in the context of like an artist's music, sometimes like more times than not. But um, still, anytime we can get a chance to like reflect on some of these issues and some of these
Mhm.
conversations, I think it's like pretty important. So yeah, I
Yeah,
know we took
'cause
like pretty much an hour to do this, which is great, but um, I think I'm actually happy that we did because I think it's always a conversation worth having, and it's a conversation worth having over and over again, in my opinion. So
Mhm.
again, not that you have to talk about it every day, but it's definitely something that
Yeah.
I think is important to continuously to put out there because um yeah, we're all human beings, we're all flawed, and we all have things that we need to and that we want to you know improve on, and whether we want to admit it to ourselves or others or not, I firmly believe it. So
Hmm. And like you said, with artists, and it just made me think of it because I'm actually working on a song right now, kind of related to that.
mm,
Is as artists, we're able in song to kind of describe some of the things that we're going through, but
mm,
when
definitely.
the mic is cut off, maybe I'll speak for myself. Sometimes it's a little challenging to have those conversations. So what I've been trying to do for myself
Mm,
is get better at having those conversations without the mic. So like behind the mic with the mic in front of me, I'm able to, voice how I feel, say what
yeah.
I need to say, not only about my mental health, but maybe things that are going on, et cetera, et cetera. But then once that cuts off, I'm kind of you. I don't know what to say. I freeze up. I'm silent. I get to myself, and it's like I'm trying to get better with that for myself as a person, and
Right.
saying that I don't have it all figured out, but I'm trying to get better at voicing how I feel in that moment, not waiting, and then just being like, oh yeah, I was just kind of pissed off that day. But if I had just let it out, in that moment, like I wouldn't have been pissed off for 3 days. I would have just been, been in
Right.
that moment, gotten through it, and then let it out, and then not put it into a verse and diss 10 people because I was pissed off about something, you know. But it's like one of those things. So it's like, I hope that, we can have those conversations with artists too and be like, what
Yeah.
what went behind that. That's why, I started that kind of series that I, kind of slacked on a little bit. The Between the Lines series is really diving
Yeah.
into the lyrics and talking about what it is that I was actually trying to refer to, because there's so much more that's behind it. And having those
Mm.
conversations again, hopefully I can do it a little bit more without the mic in front of me, but have those conversations and share that, because I think a lot of people would be surprised, even though they do kind of see some pieces of it. I think they'd be very surprised to understand the real emphasis behind a lot of these artists' lyrics and what they're actually going through. Sometimes they're just like, "Oh, it's a party
Mm.
song," but it's like maybe that party song was just something that they put out because they were trying to cover up something that they were going through,
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like you
Yeah.
never
Defense
know. So
mechanism.
yeah.
Right.
So, we have to, artists, we definitely, not saying you have to divulge your entire life, but
No. No.
you are seen as, you are a role model. And again, not that that's an excuse either, but like you have, I should say, you have a platform to help other people, like use it in a safe way, but use it in a way that can help other people too.
Oh, absolutely. I
If
yeah,
that
I
if that makes
1000%
sense.
agree. It does. It
So
does. It makes a lot of
yeah.
sense. It totally does. I think it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I think there's a great responsibility with what we do, as creatives, whether it's podcasting or making music or movies. Like, we want to tell stories. We want to tell, we want to make connections and yeah, I think these are all things that are part of the human experience. So there's no reason to ignore them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. So
For sure, for sure.
yeah,
Well, I don't want to. What are some things that you have? As we're kind of getting closer to the finish line, even though I
yeah,
hate to end the conversation, but I think that's a
that's okay.
good point to end on, is just having those conversations. Like, let's keep not only just you and I, but whoever's listening to this now, later, like, let's keep having these conversations, because there are people out there that need it. And don't be afraid to have those conversations, because there is somebody that's going to be in the room that was just begging for somebody to say something.
Yeah, yeah, I thousand, yeah, I think that was very well said. Um, yeah, and I hope people did make it all the way to here for this because I
Facts.
think
Yeah.
yeah, I hope somebody, and yeah, like Jay's saying, I think if you listen to this, like feel free to reach out to us and let us know because I think it would also be like good for us to know that like somebody else uh, you know, like benefited from this. So,
Mhm.
not that, I think you and I definitely benefited from this conversation right now. So I think that
Absolutely.
that's enough. But yeah, like you said earlier, like if we, are able to help others with it too, like that's really a huge piece of it. So,
Hmm.
I think you and I's platform is like, is definitely that's, something that we value, you know,
For sure.
and then working in like the ways that we do, like our environments that we do. Um, yeah, but yeah.
What can people that you're able to share, what can how well how where can people connect with you that may not be, as familiar with what you do? Where can people connect with
Yeah.
you? What are some things that you can again, you can share, that you have, that they can be looking out for as well?
So if someone made it to this point, I don't feel bad about divulging this now. I mean, there's going to be a lot more context that's involved with this. So anybody that made this far, you're getting an Easter egg that no one else really has. Well, there's some people that know about it, just like in our circle that are working on it, helping us work on it. First of all, you can obviously follow us at Turntable Teachers on Instagram, TikTok. Definitely hit up our website, www.turntableteachers.com, all the latest blogs and episodes and all that on there. And then you obviously want to subscribe to us on YouTube as well. You find all of our podcasts on there. Some of them are clipped up. Some of them are like the full-fledged podcasts. We've just recently been doing more like concert reviews and like recaps, which has been like a huge piece of like the new sort of wave of Turntable Teachers and what we're trying to accomplish as being more of like a media platform than like just a podcast. and really trying to help more artists with like PR. That's been the biggest thing. I've even taken on an artist as a publicist myself. Shout out Zafir. I'm like on his team now, working as his publicist. So that's been like a really like a dream come true for me. Just being in the music industry, like in the way that I'm able to be now, versus rather than just being a podcaster or just being like a talk show host. Um, it's humbling. Um, it's incredible that artists and people in the Massachusetts industry, or even the music industry, as a whole, in the nation and the globe. Like I've worked with artists for sure, like outside of the just Massachusetts, but primarily here, but most some outside too. Just the faith that people have in me and like to do some of these things and try some of these endeavors that we have. Um, and for them to put their faith in me to cover their show or write an article for them or whatever, like I never take any of that stuff for granted, and I appreciate all that. The big announcement, which is coming in about 10 days, 10 to 12 days, we are dropping a compilation album,
Nice.
but not in the traditional way in which compilation albums have been dropped. I'll just put it that way. And we have beats from 20 producers all across Massachusetts, already ready to go. And we are going to be holding open verse challenges on all of those beats, for any Massachusetts artist, rapper, vocalist to jump on and submit. And then at the end of the submission process, we're going to hold it open for about 6 to 8 weeks, and the producers are going to get to choose winners. And then those team the producers and artists that get teamed up, they're going to go off and create the songs.
Nice.
And then we'll put the whole thing out as a legitimate album, and it's going to be a sort of a representation of what Massachusetts is what Massachusetts sounds like right now, what
Nice.
different sounds and different artists and people are doing right now. So if you are a Massachusetts artist, be on the lookout for that. If you are interested in being on a compilation album, a Massachusetts compilation album, which I would hope that everyone would be wanting to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, and there's some amazing, like, again, producers that I don't want to rattle off too much information. That's more the spark notes. There's going to be more coming from that. But some of the producers we have in a great mix. We have producers that I would consider the upper echelon of Massachusetts music, to artists, I mean, to producers that are pretty established, that have a name and have worked with different artists. Some producers that are just starting to make their way up the ranks and starting to like, divulge their sound and figure out, their network. And then I have a few producers that are just looking for their very first opportunity. And this is going to be really their showcase to the state and hopefully the world. So, we feel like and we also have a lot of different sounds. We have some dance hall, we have some hip hop, hip jazz, rap. We have boom bap. We got some, drill beats in there. We have some R&B and some pop. We have, like I said, I think I mentioned, we have like a jazzy song as well, like a jazzy, funky song. We really have a lot of different production that we're going to be unveiling to all you guys, and we are like really excited for this initiative. We think it's going to be a great way to build our community. As Massachusetts has had a reputation for not being super collaborative, and I think that is false.
Fact.
I don't think we need to be the ones. Now, I'm not saying it's false for for everybody, because I think in some cases it might be valid, but I think overall that's the narrative, and I think that is. I think what Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who is an author, says in her TED Talk is that stereotypes, it's not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make
Mm.
they make that one story the only story. And we want to change the narrative a little bit about Massachusetts, that Massachusetts can be collaborative. There is a scene here. There are people buzzing here that are doing amazing work and working with incredible people, national acts that aren't getting recognized in the way that we would want them to. And we want to foster new relationships with producers and artists, have artists step outside their comfort zones and work with an artist, work with a producer that maybe they've never worked with before, and vice versa. And the beats will be anonymous, actually, so I actually know who made which beat. you're gonna
Nice.
We're gonna announce who's on the tape, on the project, but you're not going to know who made each beat as well, because we want to make it really organic as well. We don't want people just feeling like they want to work with certain people. Um, or because they just desperately want to be on that person's beat. Like, we want you to hear some of these beats, and we want you to be
Yeah.
inspired and be like, yo, that I think that's a dope beat. I got an idea for that, and I'm gonna lay down this hook, or I'm gonna lay down this verse on it, and submit that way. So the more details to come in about 10 to 12 days of all
Sweet.
that. But we are like really excited for this initiative and this project, and we think it's gonna, I think, bring a lot of people together in the community. And by the end of it, we're gonna have an album that is hopefully representative of not all of Massachusetts music, but a nice chunk of it, that we can display to not only the state, but hopefully the country and hopefully the world. So
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
yeah.
And before we wrap, I want to plug really quick. You have an event this Saturday as well too, with the Beyond
I do.
podcast as well too. I want to make sure that we throw
Right.
that out there because that's an
Yes.
amazing event for people to know about as well.
Definitely, yeah. So we're putting on a cornhole tournament at John Brewer's Tavern in Malden. Still, if anyone last minute wants to jump in on that, we will accept teams up until pretty much Saturday, I think. At least that's to my knowledge. Or you can donate to so the Venmo is just Anthony at Anthony Petrellis. We'll maybe we'll put that in the description somewhere or whatever, if you want to donate. But pretty much what we are trying to accomplish with that. Anthony, who you had on and is doing amazing things as well, and is someone I've worked with outside of the music industry and just in the more of the podcast sector. Um, he's working closely with the Flutie Foundation to donate communication boards for students that and young kids that have like autism or some sort of processing issue, or and things like that. So the initiative is to raise money to donate a communication board to a school or two schools in the Medford and Boston area. They've already done one already with an event that they did last year, and they're looking to do the same thing this year and donate another communication board, again, to just be another resource or an aid for teachers and students and young students that again might suffer from any sort of processing, um, you know, um, yeah, any sort of processing thing, or have autism and things like that. So that's definitely an initiative that I'm passionate about, being as being a teacher. And the event's going to be fun. It's a cornhole tournament, like I said. There'll be food, drinks, music, good people, good energy. It starts at noon on Saturday at John Brewer's in Malden, as I mentioned. So if you can get out there, even if you don't want to play in the tournament, you want to just come. Ton of raffles we'll have there too. I'm playing in the tournament. I don't think we'll win, but hey, whatever. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
And yeah, and I'll be set up there with I'll have a table as well with podcasts. I'll be giving out some little like knick-knacky uh merch and stuff like that to anybody that wants to come on out and support the day. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's in the afternoon, so it's not gonna hopefully wouldn't ruin anybody's like evening plans. So if you have an opportunity and you want to jump out there, even if it's for a little while, and just show your support, or throw in some money for a raffle and win a dope prize, or just donate to a good cause, we would love as much as support as within that as we can. So yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. If you can make it out there, if anybody's listening, make sure you make it out there. Show some support. Definitely a great event for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, and dude, and I thank you so much for having me back on here. And
Likewise.
I admittedly, feel like I need to do a little bit more with your platform as well and help more, because I think it's, again, like I've always thought, our platforms definitely have a lot of connectivity, just in like the initiatives and the visions. So I just like, but keeping up with what you've been doing and all your podcasts you've been doing and tuning into some of them, and it's been great to see. So continue to foster these types of environments where you can have these conversations, because I think it's really impactful and meaningful, and certainly beneficial to a lot of folks. So yeah, so thank you, and keep doing your thing, because I think the sky's the limit.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it, and thank you for taking your time to be here, and
Yeah.
share a little bit more about your story. I know you've obviously done it on your podcast and put out an episode and stuff, but again, great to have these conversations and to hopefully continue to have them to inspire people who just may
Definitely.
be just reaching out for help and just need those options. So I really appreciate your time
Mhm.
in doing that, man.
You
For
got
real.
it, man. You got it, man. Thank
Well,
you.
ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank y'all for listening, tuning in. This has been another phenomenal episode, but we are going to check out with y'all and catch y'all at another time. My name is Jay Faith. This is Mike Scarfo from the Turntable Teachers, and this is the Right Mind Wednesdays podcast. We'll catch y'all next time. What's up?